I'm gonna start streaming. That's Travis. You are the 27th of May, right? That's your deal? Yeah. Uh-huh. Cool. Still got 10 minutes, I suppose. Moonshiner for 17 long years. I spend all my money on whiskey and beer. I'll find me a hollow and set me up a still. And now, yeah, I am. Oh man, it's been too long since I played that song. Still 6 minutes so we can start. Oy vey. So for the people who showed up since the last time I asked this question, how's week 3 going? Yeah. Is it just, hey David, good to see you, buddy? Is it just a kind of relief after week 2? Like, is it just like, oh, it's not that, so that's good? Or how was your week 2s? How does that go for everybody? Yeah. Week 2 Thursday is the busiest, hardest day as a mentor. That week 2 Thursday, I think, is a harder day in the cycle than midterms. So, yeah. Oh yeah, but I think that once you kind of like, because there's a few reasons for that, and it's mostly like because you're making a big project and the requirements change. Oh, the requirements change is like the experience of going through it is rough, but as an educator, like it's a perfect educational experience to kind of set up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, and I also love that this educational setting, like you fail the project and then you just go back and do the project to get it right. I kind of love that, like we're able to kind of train for mastery, not just like you get a C, you pass. It's more like no, you're just going to keep on doing it until you meet all these criteria. And because programming is a thing where you can, like, we can write an automated test, we can write requirements. You can get 100%, and you should get 100%. My wife did political science while I was doing programming, and I would get 100% on my assignments all the time, and she never got 100% because she was writing, and what does that even mean? Uh, and it just became kind of this joke, not because I was smarter than her, just because the structure of the course was so different. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff to watch. It's good stuff to have. How's Ruby, you guys? How's that going for you? Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's a good. I like it though. Ruby. Yeah, it's good to get a chance to be exposed to a classical OOP, like a class-based OOP, and it's good to see a different syntax than the sort of JavaScript, Java, C Sharp, C++ style syntax. But it's also good to like, yeah. I think the next thing to like just pick up is a typed language, and then you'll have everything covered. So eventually look into that TypeScript. But yeah, Ruby, you guys gonna have a fun week. I wish I could be here for your introduction to Rails because it's so much fun to watch. Because there's two responses to Rails, and you're gonna see a little bit of this today too with Active Record. There's two responses, which is like, why the hell did you put us through connects and all of that? You're a monster. And the other one is like, that's too much magic. That is dark. That is some dark magic. That is darker than I like my arts. So yeah, looking forward to seeing which of those you get. Uh, I just want to start lecturing is my problem. How's it going? All right. I am eager to start my lecture. Maybe I should grab some water first. I'll grab some water first, and then I'll. it. Yes, I can start. Oh, you guys. Ah, excited. Hoping that my excitement transfers. Okay. All right. It says Discovery mic as well. I feel like it's recording two things. Is it recording two things? I'm going to take a quick look at the lapel mic. All right, whatever. Hey everybody. How's it going? Good. So, my name is Joel. I was an instructor, full-time instructor here for about 2 years, and then I didn't do that, and now I've just been a part-time. But I am a front-end dev first and foremost, so I am super excited about browser JavaScript, about client JavaScript. It is now that excitement may seem either manufactured or delusional. But the browser is just one of these environments where you can make something and anyone in the world on any device can use it. Unless they're doing SMS. You gotta get clever with SMS. But other than that, the browser is this really powerful app platform, right? There's no compiling for things. There's no telling people, oh, download this runtime. They have a browser. They use a browser. You can make stuff happen on their browser. Right? So this is a great environment for like being able to make something just kind of off the top of your head and everybody can see it, right? Which is what I love about the web. So, today we're going to be talking about JavaScript in the browser and how that's different from Node. We're going to be talking about the things that you need to know, the mechanisms that are there to be successful, and we're going to talk about some of the types of stuff that you're going to be doing, and then we're going to do a demo of doing that stuff, right? So the browser. Let's talk a bit about your experiences yesterday with CSS. Who has things to share? How was that? Let's just talk. It's a safe space. What were your experiences? It's great. Did anyone have a different experience than that? People are kind of looking at you like, are we allowed to talk about it? Are we? So, yeah, the browser is a really funny environment to work for a bunch of reasons. The number one reason is that there's not one browser, right? There's tons of browsers, and they all operate just a little bit differently. That frustration that was true of CSS is going to be true here. The second thing is that, let's be honest about the web for a moment. No one who made the web was sure what the web was going to be. Okay? So the first graphical browser, the Mosaic browser, that was in the 90s, when the HTTP came out, the big idea was, ooh, there's the hyperlink, right? And the hyperlink is that, that A tag, right? And you can click on it, and it can send you to any other document in the world. And everybody at the time saw that and was like, wow. And then they pooped themselves just a little bit. But now we're like, the hyperlink, that's not a big thing. So in the beginning, this was a thing for documents. We were going to see documents, and it's still some things that say document because of that. And the expectation was that we would style, like the most styling you would want is the sort of thing that like someone writing a magazine would want, or someone, typesetting a book. That was the level of styling they figured you wanted. And then pirates and mad scientists started using the web to do like actual things, right? And they got like Java was created to put like functionality in the web, and then the Netscape browser put in this language they called LiveScript that then got called JavaScript because they wanted to like for marketing purposes, but also for confusing people purposes. And then we also had they had to find a body to actually like give it some standards, and they went to ISO, and ISO wasn't interested, and they went to IEEE, and IEEE wasn't interested, and they went to ANSI, and ANSI wasn't interested. And they didn't have anything until they went to the European Computer Manufacturers Association, or ECMA. Like, how far down the list of standards bodies do you have to go until you end up at the European Computer Manufacturers Association? I do not know. Right? But you pass some, like, sewing circles in there. So, which is why it's also called, officially, ECMAScript. Right? So it's had this weird, crazy history through the browser, but because it kind of popped in there, it ended up giving us this world where the browser becomes the one of the best app platforms anyone has ever seen. And as a result, browser JavaScript is weird. It's super weird, you guys. It basically came from being these kind of flat, static pages to something that is alive. Right? So I'm going to, one of the comments I heard earlier, I was asking people how week 3 was going, and they're like, CSS just makes no sense. Like, the server made sense, CSS doesn't make any sense. And you're right, it does not. And the reason is that it's like, basically, it was, people were like, I'm sure this will be enough for what people want to do with it. And then, again, the rogues, the mad scientists, kept on creating abominations in the eyes of God and nature that totally defy what they wanted, and they had to keep on, like, updating the spec to be like, okay, let's give you something reasonable about this. And then that back and forth has been going on ever since. So the browser as an app platform that you probably take for granted, depending on how old you are, because I remember dial-up. Don't think I don't know dial-up. I paid for dial-up in my 20s. That's how old I am. All right. So we're just coming into this, like, you're kind of showing up to the browser and some things don't make sense. And it's part of it is that there's this long, interesting history there. And then Node kind of got to start from scratch, and it got to do a lot of things right. There's a great talk by Ryan Dahl, who created Node, and he says 10 things I regret about Node. So there's still, like, decisions being made that people are like, oh, I get it. But anyhow. So what we're going to talk is about how to actually navigate the browser, what things you're likely to have, and what you can do with them. All right. So let's start with, we're going to talk about kind of the browser environment, a word that I can spell, I promise you. All right. So right. So I'm going to put this over here, bring up the console. All right. So to start with, I'm going to show you some things you're probably familiar with already. This is my Chrome developer tools. It's going to be a real help to me. We're going to be looking at it a lot. So this is an HTML. Here's the head, here's the body, right? So the way that JavaScript in the browser works is there's one big difference with Node. With Node, when you had some code in another file, you guys have done kind of code in another file, right? You would end up putting it into, you do this thing called module.exports, and you'd use require, right? Okay. So the idea there is that if I want some code, it's almost like there's a door. I kind of knock on the door, and then they give me something out of a flap in the door, right? I don't know what they did with it. I don't know how they got it. They don't know what I'm planning on doing with it. It's this sort of just like interaction. I knock, I get the thing, that's it, right? So with the browser, the number one big difference is there's this thing called the global object. And in Node, it's actually called global, but here it's called the window. Okay? It's this object that has a bunch of stuff. Fetch, find, focus. So there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of laying around. And the global object is almost like if you're living in a house with a bunch of people, it's the common area. It's the stuff in the kitchen. It's kind of like agreeing that, like, hey, you know, I have a blender, you can use my blender, it's fine. The blender's in the common area, it's available. So if I put something on the window, that's putting it in the space. The window has, like, let's take a look at some of the things it has. It has the alert. So I can say window.alert, right? And because the window is the global object, I don't actually have to say window. If I just say alert, that's the same thing. Okay? So it's this sort of common space. If I say, so I'm gonna make, in order for me to run script in this, I need to make a script tag. If I just say script, it's going to assume that it's JavaScript. So I could say type is text JavaScript, but it knows what's up. So I'm just gonna leave this off. JavaScript 1, I think we can all accept this. So here, if I say var x equals 3, and I'm going to say console.log window. So it's there, and if I go down, I said var x was 3, right? If I scroll down, there's x equals 3. Okay. So when I just declare a variable out in the global frame, it attaches itself to the window. If I make a function, say howdy, like this. Again, if I look further down here, LMNOPQRS, say howdy. So if down here I also say howdy, there's the howdy. So a lot of times when we, in your Tiny app, you brought in the Express library, you brought in that sort of stuff, right? And so you're able to require Express, and you're able to kind of do that thing where you knock on the door and it gives you the Express, and then you do something else with it, right? When we bring in libraries in the browser, what we do is we're going to make a script tag. So I'm going to bring in jQuery. I'm going to say CDN. A CDN is a content delivery network. So there's a lot of them out there that have a lot of JavaScript libraries. So if you're looking at it, rather than doing npm, you'll probably have a link like this. So here is my uncompressed. I am going to take this script tag. The source is the important thing. You can kind of ignore the other stuff. And I am going to put it, I'm just going to put it here in the head. Doesn't really matter where I put it. I'm putting in the head just to, like, the head is where my invisible stuff goes because this has an invisible head. So I'm just going to put it there for now. And then now I have access to the jQuery object, or the dollar object is the same thing. We will talk about what jQuery is in the breakout. But that's how this works, that I basically said, hey, I want to use this in my code. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to leave it in the common space. And anything that wants to pick up jQuery and use it can pick up jQuery and use it. Right, it puts it onto the window. If I say window.jQuery, there it is. And again, if I have window dot, there's a good chance I can, like, take off the window part. So, which means that window happens to equal window.window. And it also happens to equal window.window.window. And it also happens to equal window.window.window. It also happens to equal, right? Because it's a circular reference. So I can kind of keep on coming back to that. So there is a global object in Node. It is called global. There is kind of a move for JavaScript to create something called the global this. I'm not sure if I have. Oh, yeah, there it is. And the global this, by the way, is the window. But that's another story entirely. So whenever I want to do something like that, I want to leave it out in the common space. Now, what if there's some code I don't want to leave out in the common space? You know, if you had roommates, and this is Vancouver, so some of you do. If you have that, you don't want them just leaving their crap out. Like, yeah, I might want to use that, but can you please put it away, right? So you may have some things where you need to clean up after yourself. And I'm going to show you one pattern for this, all right? It is called the immediately invoked function expression, or iffy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a parenthesis, and I'm going to declare a function within it. And then, so now this, whatever in this parentheses, that's an expression, right, of the type function. So since this is an expression of the type function, I can call it immediately. So if I say var y equals 4 here, if I go back to browser environment, I can see that it says var y equals 4, but window.y is not there. So this did what a local scope does. I created a function, I invoked it, it ran it, it created the stack for it, put the y on it, realized it was done, and just kind of wrapped the garbage bag around that stack and threw it away. It's like you do with dishes, right? Just after dinner, just kind of put all your dishes and food into a garbage bag and just throw it out. We need to start talking about my dish budget, everybody. So, so this is a good way to like be able to kind of do a lot of code, but not have to like litter everything around. All right? Iffy. So now that we know about this global space, and we know that we can put libraries onto this global space, let's start talking about some of the things that we have available to us on this global space. Number one is the window. The window is the global object. The window is home to, well, everything. The window is the catch-all for this. It's like Sakaar in Thor Ragnarok, where it's like the place where you end up, right? When you kind of like, you know. Anyone with me? All right. Yeah, the window has Jeff Goldblum as a god emperor, just so you know. So that has all of the things. It has infinity and the dollar, and it has all of the APIs that we have available. It has array buffer, atomic adder, blob, boolean with a capital B, right? I can add things to booleans. I can here's the date. So if I want to say new date, that's where the date lives, right? So all the things that are available to us throughout our programming life are there on the window. So if you, sometimes it's really easy, it's really interesting just to kind of look through the window and see what it has available to it, right? Close and closed false and document and external and fetch. Right? So it's the visual viewport. So sometimes it's good to kind of look through here and be like, oh, what are all those things? And X, of course, because I created X, right? The audio buffer, audio node, bass prop, Bluetooth stuff, CSS, other things. Just has a lot of stuff. Okay, so that's the window. The window is the global object. It is the catch-all. Now let's talk about the document. So provides access to the DOM. Now we're going to get into a little bit what this means. But if we look at the document. So it's this, you'll notice actually, do you notice something happens when I mouse over it? Watch, it's super subtle. Browser rave. Anyone? I haven't been to raves. So you'll notice it has the everything, right? This document gives us access to every node in the HTML and the HTML node itself. So if I say document.body, for instance, gives me access to the body. Document.head. I'm pretty sure document.html is a thing. No. So it has all of this stuff. Children, clear, close, cookie, create element with a certain namespace, create event. This has a lot of stuff on it. And we're going to get into a little bit of what this means, but what this is going to let us do is this is going to let us like take the page and the stuff on it and query it and mess with it. So this basic stuff here is how all like front-end magic happens. All front-end JavaScript magic pretty much has to go through this document to like make sense of where it lives. So yeah, so we're going to be using that a lot, but I just wanted to we'll get into more how that works in a bit. And the last thing, last main one that I want to show you is the navigator. And the navigator kind of tells you stuff about the browser. It has Bluetooth. It has things that are like, oh, this is what's attached to the browser. This is what's on the browser's clipboard right now. This is its connection. Hey, I have a 4G connection, I guess. I don't know. What am I at? It has online true. That's an important one, right? It has USB connections, storage, service worker. Service worker is pretty cool. It has information. My platform is Mac Intel. My user agent is Mozilla 5.0, Apple WebKit, Chrome. Right? Vendors, Google Inc. So this tells me stuff. Geolocation is here, by the way. So if you want to get a location, this is where you do it. I thought notifications were on here too. I'll have to double check where those are supposed to live. But you see, it's kind of like, it's stuff about the browser and about like where the browser sits, state of the state of the computer as it relates to the browser, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is an important thing if you want to do a little more in-depth, interesting stuff. So the navigator provides information about the browser and the device. Cool. I did cover what Niffy was. I'm going to take that out and talk about globals and nodes. Okay. So that's kind of the main stuff you have. There's more. I want to talk about some of the debugging tools. So what's the number one debugging tool you guys have used so far? Like, if you wanted to find out what a value was at a certain point in the program, what do you use? Some of you are confused by that and should be less confused by that. Yeah, we use console log. And console log kind of gives us information. Now, I got to be, like, console log, like, it's good to know, like, one of my disciplines is that if I have a question about something, a lot of times I will make sure to put a label. So window, comma, window, right? And there I had that label, and then this. The what's kind of cool is that the console log is pretty, like, especially like this changes from browser to browser, but it's pretty interactive. When I look through when I put an object in there, a lot of times it'll let me open it up and scroll down. If I put an array, it'll let me open it up and see what the values are, and I'll get to navigate into objects. So if I say, var a equals var b equals a is a dot b equals b, console.log a. So if I make an object like this, for instance, so a is an object that has a parameter b, which is an object which has a has a key a, which is an object that has a key b, which is and has a right. That's kind of turtles. I wouldn't be shocked if I keep on doing this. If I open 10,000 of them, I'll get a Stack Overflow. But it gives you a chance to kind of really dig into stuff and see what's there. The console, you can console log stuff, but this console is actually also really good to be like, oh, I'm gonna kind of just put something in here. I can see what the value of X is. I can play with that. I can say howdy, right? I can in the console while I'm going, if there's stuff on the global or in the scope that's available to me, I can do that. There's a lot more you can do with console log if you really kind of want to get into that. That's you can put styling into your console logs in the browser. You can put CSS in your console logs in the browser. Right. There's good start and stop. So if you want to see how long something is taken, you can use this as well. All right, so that's an important one. Another one, and I'm going to make an iffy just to show this. Var y equals 4, var z equals 5, debugger. Okay, so now I'm going to do this. And what we have is a breakpoint. So what debugger does, when you're in debug mode, which is always kind of what the browser's in, is it stops my program there. My program is now stopped. You'll notice that it says paused in debugger. You'll notice that there's a thing here. I can now navigate into my program and see what my program is doing at every slow step. So, and also, I have Y and 4, so I can also open up my console, and I have access to this inner scope. I have access to Y, and I have access to Z. So I can put a breakpoint in here. You actually can do this in Node as well. It just requires you have to use Node debug. But yeah, this is a chance for me to actually stop my program and get into what it's doing. Now, of course, now my program has this debugger sitting everywhere, right? That's not so awesome. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to press go. I'm going to restart this, but I still want to see what's happening at that exact spot, right? Because if I did Y plus Z here, it'll be like Y is not defined. So I want to know what happens at that thing. So I'm going to look at the sources, and I'm going to click on line 35 or 37, maybe 38, and that creates a breakpoint. So when I run this again, I'm at this breakpoint, and it has the same thing. And I have access to Y, and I have access to Z, and I have access to... in fact, I can see the scope. I can see all the stuff I have available. Right? Which is pretty cool. So these are important tools for debugging front-end code. Another one you have... That's just a good way of kind of seeing when something happens. But I wouldn't overuse this so much, is the alert. You kind of saw that already. The thing with the alert is that it breaks every execution. So you need to be gentle with it. Okay. Cool. All right, so now that we know about that, let's get into actually how we make stuff. This has all been prelude, preamble, prologue. I'm going to move this mic away so people don't have to listen to me drink water. The DOM, the Document Object Model. Yeah. Now, who had programmed HTML before showing up here? Who'd done some HTML? Huh? Made an HTML page? Huh? Maybe some divs, some anchor tags, some p tags, some ULs, some LIs, text inputs, text areas, forms? Huh? A canvas if you're super saucy. Okay, so when we write HTML, so here I'm going to write something called DOM. HTML. When we write HTML, it's in this structure that we kind of inherited from. There's a thing called SGML, and it's basically about these elements, and they're kind of containers. So they have other elements inside them, right? So there is an HTML element that has two child elements, the head and the body, right? And the head has a meta tag and another meta tag and a third meta tag and a title, and those are the child elements of head, right? And they're siblings to each other, right? So if I put here H2 DOM manipulation and a UL LI, it's easy, fun, and profitable, right? Then I have this structure that's it's a tree structure, and I say it's a tree structure. I'm gonna switch to whiteboard view and hopefully remember to switch back. Although the whiteboard is a little okay, I guess I have to move it over here. It also says welcome to demo day on the back. I really should have planned ahead for how this went. It's not actually demo day. I feel like I have to. All right. It's one of the many seamless transitions in my lecture. Okay. Right. So. Okay. So we have the HTML at the top. Is that showing up in any way, shape, or form? Yeah, it's all right. I'll just need to be like more persistent about it. And it has the head, and the head has if we look at the top here, it has 3 metas and a title. Meta, 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 title, right? And then we have the body, and the body has an H2 and a UL. So here's my H2 and here's my UL, right? And the UL has 3 LIs, right? 3 list items. And strictly speaking, the H2 also has a bit of text, and the HLI has a text node is in it as well. Well, this kind of structure where you have a root which contains things, and those things contain things, and it sort of goes down in this fashion. We have a term for this in programming. It's a tree. It's a specific, it's a directed acyclic graph for all of you nerds or people who are going to watch this later and be like, oh, that is a. So Yeah, where it's like the HTML contains the head and the body. The head and the body are siblings, and they can't, like, the body could not also contain a title that's in the head, right? We can't have this weird thing. It's like this contains that, that contains this. Like it's very top down, right? It's top down and it has a very specific directionality to it. Head contains meta. Meta is contained by head, right? There's a very specific asymmetrical relationship there. That is a tree. And from any node, we can navigate to its children, and from any child, we can navigate up to its parent, if we want to. So a big part of what we're going to be able to do is I want to be able to get a reference in JavaScript to find these, to be able to do stuff with it. I want to be able to query the DOM. And the rules are pretty simple. Like, it's easy for me to like search through children, and I'm going to say console.log the body. Was body a thing by itself? I'm going to find out. It is not, because it is document.body. There we go. And I'm going to mouse over this. You can see that lights up. So that's the body tag. The body tag which has these things in it, right? So I'm going to say for const item of document.body.children console.log item. Actually, I'm going to call this child. I think I can do this because I'm going to find out in a second. Right? So now I've gone through and here's the body, but then here's each child, the H2 and the UL and the script tag. And I said children, so also if I put some text here, I guess it's dot child nodes. Yeah, so there's even a text node between above the H2, just because there's some white space there, right? I'm pretty sure if I just went like this and this again, there would be no text node there. So it also has text nodes, but truth be told, we're not really going to mess with those very much. Just wanted you to know they exist. So not child nodes, I'm going to say dot children, and this is going to go through the elements. And the elements are the things with the tags and the, right? So we have the H2, we have the UL, and of course we have the script that called it. Okay, so easy, fun, profitable. So I have this UL, right? Now I want to find the UL, because I want to do stuff with the UL. How do I do that? Well, I could say document dot body dot children 1 right? So that gives me the UL. Somebody tell me why this might not be a good idea to have in my code in perpetuity. Why might finding the UL this way cause some troubles? Yeah, someone might like just put something new in there, and then I'm screwed up, right? So we need some other way of being able to find this UL. Now, how would we do it in because we have the same problem in CSS, right? We want to be able to find something. We want to be able to select an element and then like style it somehow, right? So if I were doing this in CSS, if I have a style tag here up at the top and I want to style that UL, what do I do? how do I, what do I put here? UL. I can just put the name of the element, right? Okay. That's done. But what if there's more than one UL in this, right? And I don't want to style those. What's another way that I can get this particular UL? Yeah, I could add a class to it, right? I could say, I could say UL class is redlist. And I could say either ul.redlist or just dot red list color tomato, right? And if I didn't have that ul in here, still the same thing. What's another way I can do this? ID, right? So I can say ID DOM manipulation aspect list, right? And then up here I could say hashtag DOM manipulation aspect list. Okay. So those ways of actually searching in CSS also exist in the in DOM queries. So we can do the exact same thing. So let's do that. I can get UL by element name, right? I can say document dot body. I have to start with a document node. And the top level one is the document. So I want to actually just do document. I don't have to go down to the body to do this. I'm going to say get elements by tag name. And it's going to be UL. And I'm going to say 0. UL by element name. And by element name says get elements, so I have to make sure to get the first one. Okay? But there I have it again. We said you could do it by class, right? So var UL by class name is going to be document.get elements by class name. And I don't have to put the dot here. I can just say what the class name or names are. So in this case, it's going to be red list, right? And again, I have to make sure to grab the first one. So, UL by class name. All right. As you well know, I'm so sorry. It was a terrible pun and I couldn't stop myself. And the last thing I said, what was our last way of kind of getting access to this thing? ID, right. So I can say var UL by ID is going to be document.get element by ID. You'll notice that it is elements, element. So, and I'm going to say what the ID is, which is in this case is going to be document DOM manipulation aspect list. And UL by ID. UL, class name. UL by ID. Okay, so, and then the third thing, and this is in my recent-ish memory, so this is not new, but new enough that I remember it being new, is that I'm going to talk in the afternoon about a library called jQuery. It came out It really did start like the JavaScript renaissance. It really did start JavaScript being like a real app, like frame, like you could put stuff there, right? It made the browser a viable app platform. And one of the things it started with this thing, with the jQuery, the JavaScript query, the ability to like query a DOM or query a DOM node by this thing, right? So eventually, the way that it did things, because basically it's like you could put in a CSS query and then find anything on the way that the CSS would. And eventually the DOM, like the browsers figured out that they should do that too. They should make that available. So we can also have var ul by query selector equals document dot query selector. Now, if I use query selector, I get one thing. I get the first thing that matches this. Query selector all gives me a DOM node list that I can then keep working on. So I'm going to put something here that's going to be like, ul dot red list hashtag. Like, so there's my query, right? I can put a full CSS query in here, and then console.log by query selector. And indeed, it has found that through a CSS-like query, which is, I think, pretty cool. So now we can finally get access to document elements through our queries. We can basically have things in the page that we are able to target and change. And how are we going to change them? That is something you're going to find out after your coffee break. Come back in 10 minutes. me like it's been 10 minutes. I had a conversation with Taid from Mark. Felt like it took 20 minutes, but it's time for it. Something weird, and then you spend a couple moments furiously coping. All right. All right. Let's get back to it. Okay, so what were we talking about? Let's just assume I had a hammer to the forebrain and forgot what we talked about to start with. Can somebody enlighten me on my... Where are we at? What have we been doing? Searching for elements, right? So we kind of introduced the browser and the global and the thing and the DOM, and now we've searched for elements, right? We've got element hunting. It's a lot more ethical than elephant hunting. So I'm going to cp DOM querying to DOM manipulation. So now we're going to perform some DOM manipulation. That just basically means like we're going to change stuff on the page. And there's basically two things that we're going to do, right? Because we have these elements that we're doing stuff to. So either we're going to change aspects of the element, or we're going to be like adding and removing and maybe even moving around elements on the page. All right? All right? All right. So DOM manipulation. I'm going to take off this stuff. And I'm going to just go ahead and say I got this UL by query selector. I just queried the crap out of this UL. Had a lot of very specific things about it that I was like, I want one of these. I want something that is a UL and has the class red list and has the ID DOM manipulation aspect lists, and the browser was like, yeah, man, I got all those. You have a very specific request, and I fulfilled it. So, we're back to DOM manipulation. No, we're not. Sorry, I need to say. Cool. Also, why don't I just do a thing real quick? Style, body, font, size, 40 pixels. Yarp. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so there's two main things that we, like two big classes of stuff, and one is that we can manipulate the UL itself. We can manipulate the object that we have access to, right? If we look here at UL by query selector, there it is. I have that whole user list. So what can I do with it? Well, some easy things I could do is I could add and remove class names. This one's a really powerful one. So let's talk about the UL by query selector has a class list that I'm going to console.log. It's a DOM token list. It has one thing, and it's called red list. So what I could do, I'm going to create a script here that says like dot yelling, which is going to be font weight bold text transform uppercase, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say UL by query selector dot class list dot add yelling. All right. Okay, so now we have done that. We have added the yelling class to it. Our original source did not have yelling on it, but now we can see red list yelling. Okay. If I wanted to remove a class, I could say UL by query selector dot class list dot remove yelling. right? So now it took it off and put it on. You know, this isn't a really good example because I'm like taking it on and putting it on, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set timeout, pass in a, I'll do, no, I'm going to try to stick with ES5 as much as possible, and I'll talk about that in a second. 5,000. And then same thing here. Set timeout function, 10,000. All right, so let's do this again. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. Where did I put my copy? Oh, there it is. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. There it is. Okay, so I was able to manipulate the thing, right? Yeah. I can also, another thing I want to point out is what would happen if I did this twice? Okay, so I'm not looking for someone to know the answer, but what does your gut tell you about what might happen here? What are some guesses about what could possibly happen? Including the computer sets on fire. Like that's... Like, what do we have? What are some options for what might happen? Yeah. It might add yelling twice. What's another thing it might do? Where's my coffee? Not run the second line, so it might just ignore that second. Any other guesses? Kind of might run them simultaneously. Okay. Like, it might override, it might cause an error. Okay, so the reason I ask for what are the possibilities and not what's the right answer is because as you're going to keep on going, this is going to be more about like, I'm going to form an instinct about how I think it might happen, and then I'm going to view the results. Being right about something is not that important. You're going to be more and more right about it as you observe it and you develop an instinct. That is going to be, your experience is going to like just bake that stuff into your brain. Don't feel like you have to know exactly what it'll do beforehand. Have an instinct about, like, it could be these things, experiment to see what'll happen, and then you know. And live later is like, oh, I experimented before and I forgot what it did. Experiment again. Don't memorize anything on purpose. Don't feel bad about not knowing what it'll do. Let's find out what it'll do. So I'm going to have this twice. So 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. So it added it once to this list. So what add does is if it sees that it's missing, if it sees it's there, it doesn't have to add it again. Let's do the same thing here with remove. Right? Of course, I have to restart this. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. There it is. Okay. So it removed it again. It didn't care about, like, so just make sure it's removed, or add just makes sure it's there, checking to see if it's there first. Which is good, because if we had added it twice and we tried to remove it, it would only remove one of them and then we'd be in the same boat. I'm going to do the same thing with, so there's another one we have here. So, set, and I'm going to set interval. Interval is like timeout, but it keeps on repeating. So I'm going to set a 1 second interval, and what this is going, that's a period, not a comma. And what I'm going to do here is ul by query selector dot class list dot, I can say toggle. And who can guess what toggle does? Yeah. If it's there, it adds it. If it's not, it removes it. I know, right? I'm a wizard. All right. Okay. I also love how this shows up in bah, dun, bah. All right. Okay, enough of that. It's very distracting. Another thing it's possible to do is that we can take that thing And we can also affect the style of it. So let's console.log. So we also have the CSS style declaration. And these are basically, you guys know what an inline style is? Who can tell me what an inline style is? I see nodding heads. I always feel good about that. Right, so like on the HTML element itself, you say style and you set some styles. So we can do that programmatically, which I think is cool. So I could say here, console log, in fact, I'm going to do this as a set timeout, just so you can see it with it and without it. 2000. And I'm going to say ul by query selector dot style dot color equals what am I looking for? Do I want to go tomato again? Deep sky blue? Let's go Rebecca purple, even though the story behind that is deeply sad. Don't Google it now. Just, it's a thing. All right, so 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4, and there it is. Right? So now I'm able to make this, and if we look at the element, we can see, oh, style, color, Rebecca purple. Here it is. Right? So we have the option to do that. What are the most common things that is changed by a method like this? Is style.display is none. Display, that's not a thing. Display, none. Right? So if I run this, and what it does is it hides something. It takes it off the thing, and then later I can be like, oh, when this happens, then I'm going to show it again. Right? So this is really, so inline style manipulation. All right. Class manipulation, inline style manipulation. Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. So, now, so we've done messing with an element itself. There are more messings with that are available, by the by. So I recommend that you sort of like, you can look into that. But another thing we can do is that we can add elements or remove elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say set, so we can remove DOM nodes. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, if I look at console.log, ul by query selector dot children, I can see here in the console, there's an HTML collection of 3 list items, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them one by one. So so I'm going to say var interval ID. This is, by the way, if you want to do an animation, but you want to stop it after a while. This is one way of doing it. Function. I'm going to say ul by query selector dot remove. Actually, I'm going to find that first child. Children at 0, and I'm going to say dot remove. And I'm going to set the interval on this to be 5,000 again, just so it takes some time. So, oh, there it goes. And it's not just hidden, it is out of the DOM. It is gone now, right? There goes profitable. Wait for about 5 seconds. Oh no, cannot remove undefined, right? I should have checked to see. So what I'm also going to do here is say like, hey, if ul by query selector dot child element count is 0, clear uh, interval ID. Oh, console.log. All done. Else. Right? I guess I could also just say, like, put this here and then. Yeah. So now, and you also notice that by the time I got there, it was like 10, 11, like it kept on trying to do this. So now, there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. All done. Okay, so this is how I can remove. I can either say of the element itself remove, or I can say, hey, remove childs. I can also go through a list and do like remove. So yeah. Right. It would continually try to remove the first child of that UL, and it would have an error because it like the first child of that UL, when there's no children, is undefined. So it's saying, hey, I cannot do remove of undefined. So it kept on having that error, but it kept on having the error within that loop. So yeah. Well, basically, it would just be spinning cycle. So let's see it happen, and also let's take this down to 1,000. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hey, look, I made an online timer. 8, 9, 10. So it keeps on having errors. This will keep on showing up. It won't break your stuff, but there is a timer running through destroying the performance of your app. It's here, so bad news. Okay. Another thing you can do, as you could imagine, is that we can add nodes. So let's do this again. Let's do this again sometime, you guys. Where I'm going to add a DOM node. All right, now this gets to be a little bit of work. I'm not gonna lie to you. Hope you all like work, because I got some. So I want to add a node. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do an interval ID again. For our interval ID equals set interval 3000, and I'm going to say I need to make a new li. So var new li equals document.create element. I need to create an element with a tag name. So I am creating an li. Okay, so now I've made a new li element that I'll be able to put into my DOM node, or into my UL node, right? I'm going to add some text. So I'm going to say li.innerText equals fresh. Are we still saying fresh? Like fresh never gets stale, does it? It can't. That can't be a thing. Right, so I know that was the daddest joke I think I've done so far. I have. It's going to happen. And then I'm going to take that UL by query selector, and I'm going to append a child. I am going to add that new li. So I've created the list item, I've given it an inner text, and I've given it that. So let's see. So now I've added a DOM node. Easy, fun, profitable. Fresh. Right? And they sort of look like the other ones, right? There's nothing kind of crazy or new there. If I wanted to add a class, I'd add more things here. But for the most part, yeah, I'm cool with this. This is good. So that's how I append an li. And these are, I also realized, I need to go back for a second. Another way I could change a node is to change its inner text as well. I can change inner HTML. I really try to stay away from that one because it's like stuff can happen. There can be some bad news with inner HTML. I try to avoid it. But especially when you're just kind of putting something together, it's not the worst thing. But for like production stuff, I usually avoid that. But yeah, the inner text will just change the inner text of something. So, all right, cool. Actually, it'll be fun to do is put this in there, give it a time of like 5,000, and add at the same time. Just okay, yeah, and then just see the war go on. All right, it's going right. Cool. All right, now there was an event that triggered this change, and the event that I had was an interval, right? And this is an important event. Also, I'm going to stop you because you've gone crazy. But we now get to the next part of the DOM, which is that, like, yeah, we have all these changes we can make. We have this power to bend the DOM to our will, right? But one of the things we need to do now is wait for the user to do things. We need to actually be able to know when they have performed some action, right? It's not like our entire app is just going to be based off of timers, right? We need something that lets us know when we should do these DOM element manipulations and what shape they should take, what they're supposed to do. Yeah? Yeah? Well, yeah. Yeah. All right. And that's where event listeners come into play. Who likes callbacks? Huh? Who enjoys the callbacks? I'm sure you didn't hear the question. Right, callbacks. I found that events are kind of where callbacks really made sense as to what they were doing. And we're going to be using them. Now, this is a callback, set interval, function, blah, blah, blah. This basically says, hey, when that interval event happens, here's what I want you to do. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to be attaching events. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to say DOM events.html, HTML5. Now let's start thinking about things on a page that we can actually like do something with. What is an element that we can put on a page that invites a user to do something? A button. That is right. So let's put together a button. All right. For all of you fans of the white stripes, of which I hope there are some here. Okay, so we have this button. Again, I'm going to add the style here. Body, font size, 40px. That did not help. Body, star. Okay. So we have the artist button to button. What happens if I click this button? That's right. Nothing. What's the thing that could happen when I push this button? What's the thing you would like to see happen? Literally anything. World peace. The violent overthrow of certain world leaders. Curing of diseases. Invention of diseases. What do you guys want? What do you guys want to have at when I push this? I should not have been drinking when you said that. All right. Zombie apocalypse. All right. One zombie apocalypse coming right up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to have a script tag, because that's how I get JavaScript into the browser. And I need to get this button. I need to actually get a reference to this button. You'll notice, by the way, the script goes afterward. One of the other weird things about JavaScript in the browser is that like things load one at a time. So if I had a script tag above this button and I tried to find the button, it wouldn't be there because it hadn't been loaded into the page. It's a whole thing. That's why I put my scripts at the end. I usually put my library scripts up here, and I use my app scripts down here, just for the sake of like keeping track of what's going on. So what I need to do first is find the button. Var the button. What do I do? Document. Dot get element by tag name. What tag name do I want to put here? Button. All right. I'm going to make sure that I have that button. Console.log the button. All right. So now in my thing here, indeed, I have an HTML collection of like this one. So I need to get the actual let's get elements. I need the element. The 0th of elements, right? Hardest button, the button. All right, now I need to tell it, hey, when somebody clicks, I want you to do a thing. And that is adding an event listener, right? So what I'm going to say here is I'm going to say the button dot add event listener. And I'm going to pass it I'm going to pass it two things. One is the name of the event, which in this case is going to be click, and a listener, which is going to be a function. Ignore the this part. Well, the this actually kind of matters, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm using just a regular old function, and I get the event object. So one of the ways to kind of if you don't know what a callback is going to do, sometimes it helps just to write console.log this and console.log arguments. Now, arguments is a thing that sort of it's basically, hey, whatever the closest function was called with, right? Excuse me, I am gross. All right, so let's do that. And the this is the button, right? And the arguments are, well, there's an array with a function and a symbol.iterator, I guess. There's a mouse event and then some sort of other stuff. So I now have the event. So I'm going to take a look at that. And of course, while I'm at it, just to make things clear, I'm going to put little labels here. Event. So the event is a mouse event. And here's some information about it. Was the control key held down while I clicked that? No. And apparently, it won't let me. How about shift key? There it is. Yeah, so there's alt key false, but shift key true. I held down the shift key while I was clicking it. This tells you where the click happened. This tells you the timestamp of that click from the page loading. It tells you what the target was, which is what was the thing that actually caused this click to happen. And the reason it's well, isn't that the same as this? It might not be, because there's a thing called event bubbling. And event bubbling basically means let's say we're talking about some sort of event, right? Let's say there was a Guinness Book of World Records for the most people doing a flash mob in gorilla suits or something like that, right? So let's say that it happened in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery. Okay? Did it happen in is it Georgia? Right? So did it happen on Georgia Street? Did the event gigantic gorilla flash mob happen on Georgia Street? Yes. Did it happen in downtown Vancouver? Yes. Did it happen in the city of Vancouver? Yes. Did it happen in the greater metropolitan area of Vancouver? Yes. Did it happen in um, the province of British Columbia? Yes. Did it happen in the country of Canada? Yes. Did it happen in the Western Hemisphere? Yes. Did it happen on planet Earth? Yes. So you kind of see that, like, technically speaking, if I was like, hey, I want to know about all gorilla suit flash mobs happening in the province of British Columbia, if I said province dot, BC dot add event listener gorilla suit flash mob and event listener, yeah, that should fire if there's a gorilla suit flash mob, in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery. So this thing kind of propagates out. So when it happens, I also want to be able to know. So I could add an event listener of click to the body, and it would tell me if this button happened. Now, just knowing that there is a gorilla suit flash mob in the province of British Columbia might not be super helpful. I might want to know exactly where that happened. So I might want to know, hey, where's the actual location of this? Oh, in front of the Vancouver Art Gallery. Okay, cool. And it's the same thing where it's like, I might want to know what actually triggered the click, even if my event listener is on something else. And then this would be the something else. So that's event bubbling, is that it'll catch up, which is really, really cool, especially if you are adding and removing DOM elements. You might want to have a listener on the parent that's like, hey, whenever, I don't care how many things are taken out or added to this, but when this sort of click happens, I want to know it at the parent level. That way you only have one listener for the entire thing, so it's pretty handy. That seems a little abstract. You're going to get used to it as time goes on. But I have this, so I have this event listener. If there is an add event listener, there is also a remove event listener. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this function click listener. It's going to take in an event. Now, usually with a button, you just care that the button is pressed. We don't really care about any other information on it. So I don't really care about that. And here I'm going to say click event, click listener. But maybe one of the things I also want to do is I want it to be clicked once. So once it clicks, I want to actually remove this event listener. Then I can say, hey, the button dot remove click listener, remove event listener, click listener. So now I'm going to take a look at this element, this button. I'm going to look at the event listeners. Oh, look, there's a click listener on button at DOM events HTML20. I'm going to click it, and then, hold on. Let me also, oh, I didn't say this. Haha. Console.log clicked. All right, now let's try to reload it. And now should, I guess we're going to find out in a moment. So now that I click it, it says clicked, but now it won't do anything. So I think it's just on that list, but it's no longer connected. There's also a once, which is pretty cool. Once false. So that is how I add and remove event listeners. Now the button's a pretty simple one because the point of the button is it's just like one thing happened, right? There are things with much more complicated events. Can somebody think of something that might have a little more complicated event? Can anyone think of what type of thing? A form, right? Where you type is where I was going with that. So let's take specifically an input. All right. I'm going to create another p tag here, and I'm going to put it in a form. We'll get to that in a second. And I'm going to have an input type is text. Right, and I'm going to say var the text input equals document.query selector input. Type is text. All right. If I look at my console here, I should see the text input. There it is. Okay. So I now have this input, right? So I want to capture when someone clicks something. Well, the text input here, one of the easiest ones to listen to. Well, let's take a look actually at our different events. So I'm going to go to MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network, which is a good network, a good reference. And I'm going to say, we had mouse event, right? I wonder if there's a key event. Keyboard event, even better. So keyboard event, right? So we have these events. We have the properties and the codes and the things. There's key down, key press. Oh, key press, key down, key press, key up. So I'm going to listen to the key pressed events. In fact, let me look up the key press. The key press event is fired when a key produces a character is pressed down. Examples of key that produce a character value are alphabetic, numeric, and punctuation. Examples of keys that don't produce a character value are modifier keys, such as Alt, Shift, Control, or Meta. All right. So I'm going to add key press function, and I'm going to need the event. I don't want to know what the current thing is. I'm actually going to say e.target.value. Actually, let me console log e. Here's the keyboard event. It tells me which key I clicked, which was the key A. Also, if I do a capital D, it's key D, but it also says that the key was capital D, so it knows if there's a shift or not. But the thing I ended up really paying attention to is e.target.value, which I feel is a step behind. Which can be tough. All right. I might say this dot value. Let me see how that turns out. Okay. Interesting. It's always a step behind. And then I'm going to try key up. Yeah. That's better. So key up will actually let me know what it is at any given point. Okay, so that's a way to keep track of that. And then there's the one, the kind of the big, one of the biggest, most complicated events is the submit event. How am I doing for time? I'm doing not bad. So there's a form here. So I'm going to say var the form equals document dot query selector form. So I have a form. Now, how do forms work? You guys have made some forms. You guys have made some forms work. So you have like stuff on it, right? What happens if you click submit on a form? Right. It's almost like clicking an anchor tag, but instead the anchor tags are always get, the form is like get or post, right? So its default behavior is to change your page to something else, which you might not always want it to do that. It might be where it's like, hey, I want someone to submit the form, but instead of actually doing a post request, I just want to grab the stuff off the form and do something with that. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to say function on submit. So we are going to pay attention to the submit action of this form. Okay. I am going to give this a name so that we can use it, right? You guys get that, right? Name, thoughts. All right. So I'm going to say the form dot add event listener submit on submit. Okay, so I'm also going to need a submit input while I'm at it. BR input type is submit. Value. What you thinking about? Okay. I don't know why that's not large, but that's fine. So I have this thing, and what happens if I click this? It submits it with that, right? We're all seeing this nonsense? So the default behavior is for it, and it did a get because I didn't put in a post, but yeah, like that's the default behavior. I don't want it to do that if I'm controlling this page, because that just reloaded the page, which is some nonsense. So the number one thing, if you have a submit handler, the number one thing, I want to make sure I have all of your collective attention because this is a thing I actually want you to remember. If you have a submit handler, the number one thing that you want to do at the top of this submit handler, you have the event. You want to tell this event not to do its usual thing. Event.prevent defaults. I'm going to take off this thoughts bit here, right? And now you'll notice it is not redirecting. And now I can get something off of this page. And the way that I tend to do get stuff off of the form in a submit is that I will say, well, I'll get the form. The form is the event.target, and it has a console.log event.target. That's the form, right? There it is. There's the form. And the target has a thing called elements. These are the elements of that form. A form has this. So there's this forms controls collection with 2 inputs, right? But you'll notice one's called thoughts. I can actually get the element by name. So I can say elements.thoughts, right? There's that input. So I can get the value of that thoughts input. ASDF, right? So I'm going to, so now that I have that, I can say var current thoughts equals event, value. And then maybe I'm going to alert current. You are thinking plus current thoughts. And then I'm going to clear the thoughts again. It's going to clear my head, you know? So, you were thinking puppies. Yay. And now it's clear out of the way. So that's some of the sample events you have. There's more to be had. There's some fun stuff you can do with mouse and that sort of thing. Okay, so let's actually do something. Let's put some of these together into a quick app. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make some puppies. Oh, sorry, I just want... All right, so I'm going to start with a form here. And it's going to have input type text, name is name, and a input of type submit value make puppy. All right, and then over here, I'm going to have UL called puppy list. I will definitely say I don't use IDs in my CSS. Like, just generally speaking, as a rule, I don't use it in my CSS, but I frequently use it in my JavaScript if I'm doing like this vanilla kind of client stuff. It makes sense to like find a specific thing, but I often don't use it for anything else. So, yeah, let's make a script. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to put all this stuff in an iffy. Does anyone remember what iffy stands for? The first word is immediately. Immediately invoked function expression. Gold stars for everyone. I did not bring gold stars. They are imaginary gold stars. Just imagine yourself being covered in gold stars. We can all do that. All right. So I'm going to get the puppy list. Var the puppy list equals document.get element by ID puppy list. All right. And I'm going to say, do that here as well. Puppy form. I'm going to say that var the puppy form equals document dot get element by ID puppy form. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to listen to when this form someone clicks make puppy, right? Right. So and I want basically this is where you're going to put a name for a puppy, and then we're gonna make that puppy, right? So let's start basic here. I'm going to say the puppy form. How do I know when the puppy form, like somebody clicked the thing on the puppy form? What's the event? What's the event that triggers that? So it's actually it's going to be a form. So what's the big event for the form? Submit, right? It takes some time. Don't feel bad. So submit function. And what is the number one thing I say when you're doing a submit handler? What's the number one thing you got to do first? Prevent default. That's right. E.prevent default. And then I'm going to say var puppy name equals e.target.elements dot name dot value. Alert, your puppy is named plus puppy name. And then I'm going to say e.target.name.elements.name dot value equals nothing. Oh, that's a long thing. So I'm just going to say like var puppy name input equals e.target.elements.name, right? And then that value equals that. All right, so let's reload this. What's a good name for a puppy? Jonathan. All right. Your puppy's named Jonathan. Okay, we've cleared it. Now, we haven't really done much here, so I'm going to make a puppy counter. Our puppy counter equals 1. And what I want it to do is I want to add an element here. Var, I'm going to grab the puppy list. Var new puppy name li, or puppy li equals, I'm going to create an li here. Document dot create element li. And I'm going to add basically a span with a name and an image to this. So var new puppy image equals, I'm going to make an image document dot create element image, and we're going to go to placepuppy.net. I can't just talk about puppies without showing some puppies. That just seems cruel. New puppy image dot source equals that, but with plus puppy counter plus, there we go, new yeah, bar new puppy name equals document dot create. I'm going to create a text node, which is going to have whatever the puppy name is. And then I'm going to say of my new puppy li, hey, new puppy li dot append new puppy image, new puppy li dot append. I need to make just because I want it to new line, so I'm just going to make document dot create element br for a line break. And new puppy li dot append new puppy name. And while I'm at it, I'm going to increase my counter. Puppy counter plus equals 1. All right. Cool. So let's go back here. Let's meet Jonathan. Oh, that's not right. Oh, you know what? I need to actually apply this to the puppy list. So the puppy list dot append new puppy li. That's also important. Let's try this again. Jonathan. There's Jonathan. All right, I need more puppy names. Puppy? Fluffy. Let's see if Fluffy's fluffy. Fluffy-ish. All right. New names? Hey, you. Hey, you. There's Hey, you. All right, cool. We have made puppies. So we have now added to the DOM, right? Now, sometimes puppies need... Well, I mean, I hate to do this, but I think we also need a demo of removing DOM nodes. So, what I'm going to do, var send puppy to a nice farm button equals document dot create element button. Send puppy to a nice farm dot inner text equals he's going to a better place. It's got dark. Send puppy to a nice farm button. All right, so now this doesn't do anything yet. So let's, I'm going to add a, yeah, I'm going to have to add a click handler. I think, so because I keep on creating things, it would be nice to actually have just the one click handler. So I am going to say the puppy list dot add event listener click, right? And because they kind of bubble up, console.log clicked, and I can take a look at the event.target as well as the this. I can see, right? If I take a look at my console here, I can see that here is this is the puppy list. That's what the event listener was attached to, right? But the target was the button. Okay. I'm going to add an attribute to this button, the send up state ID. Or actually, no, it's going to be, yeah. I'm going to say maybe send puppy dot attributes at data send to farm equals true. And I think that when I do that, yeah, this particular UL, oh, it doesn't have it on it. Let's see if, how do I add this? It is var button equals document.query selector li button dot, okay. So set attribute send to farm true. So now it should say, yeah, send to farm true. So button dot set attribute. I know, I'm so sorry about how long it's taking me to kill this dog. All right. Okay. And if we take a look at this element, we can see that it has that thing, right? So here I can say, in fact, to the, yeah, if event dot target dot, so we have the event dot target, console.log event.target.attributes. See if those are anything. Jonathan, make puppy. Right, so it has send to farm. So if this dot send data send to farm, so if send to farm is true, so here I can say, hey, if event.target.attributes data send to farm. That's just checking to see if it's truthy, right? Then I can say event.target.parent. I can't remember if it's parent element or parent. I'm just going to see parent dot remove. Let's see if that does it. HTML list element. There it goes. And we've sent him to a nice family where he can just run freely and have a lot of fun with a lot of the other puppies who were also sent to that farm upstate. And now we have done all the things we needed to do. And now it's 11. Are there any questions? The dogs are fine. Okay, so for I'm going to send out these notes for breakout. We're going to do the exact same stuff, but with jQuery. It's a really easy lecture to plan. All right, thank you all so much for your attention.